Today, I'm going to bring you a guy who I've been wanting to talk to for a long time. I've known of him for quite some time. He's done amazing stuff within the self protection world. He's built an incredible business. He's overcome a lot of obstacles, but I've never actually got a chance to talk to him. Of course, talking about Damian Roos from myselfdefensetraining.com. But that really doesn't tell you much. If you think of him only as, a guy on the internet or somebody there, this guy's the real deal. Had an awesome conversation with him. We have so many similarities. He basically kind of the same thing. He found a system, a mentor, instructor that taught him exactly what he was thinking, martial arts and combatives should be. And he had the same thing that happened to me when I was exposed to my training originally. And it was like, why the hell doesn't everybody have this? And he kept that passion and he put it through, and it went through all these different turns. So this is a great story. If you want to hear about a great martial arts story, you want to hear about somebody who is just truly passionate about it, gives great information on combatives, what's important, what is the difference between self-defense training and combat sports, where do they mix, what are the misconceptions, and then also how this guy built an incredible business, overcame tons of challenges, literally, people walking out on him, leaving him high and dry, and still persevering and keeping it going. It's just a great story. I was really surprised how much I enjoyed it. Not because I thought anything bad about him. I just didn't know. It was one of those great, conversations that you get to have. That's the fun of this channel. I love bringing you subject matter experts that you may not know much about, or you may have misconstrued conceptions of them, and then you actually get to hear what they have to say. This is chock full of great information. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Damian Roos. Damian.
Hey, Timmy.
Hey, man. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Again, like I said, this feels like Black Belt Magazine.
I know, man. Dude, I've obviously I've followed you for years. It's been fun. It's been fun though. I mean, I got the utmost respect for what you guys have done, what you've accomplished, because you really delineated yourself in a very tough, area, and you got, you've reached numbers that are just crazy of people.
There's a lot of static out there. I'm just shocked that over the landscape of what would be considered, self-defense, there's still the same stuff that it was taught to me when I was taking Taekwondo.
Yeah.
It's like it has not evolved. It has not changed, other than people like a handful of us who are like, all right, let's take a look at what is a real assault. Right. And, we're getting into like some of the psychology behind it, but then it's like, what are you really going to be able to do? And what's your best chance of success? But still, I got to watch, TikTok video of someone getting, 10 million likes because, someone does some ridiculous wrist grab defense.
Right.
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 But again, it still survives. And I don't, I'm perplexed.
What was like? Let's give people a little bit of perspective and history for you.
Sure.
So give us a little bit about your background, but also I'd like to know what was the moment for you where you realized, hey, this is something I want to share this with people, and I want to, what was that deal?
Well, my journey first started when I bricked a basketball in second grade. I am not a basketball player, so that's why I started wrestling. That was like the immediate, this does not feel natural to me. It just so happens my son is actually really good. And that's one skill set that I've actually tried to get better at, and I've not improved since second grade. So I started with wrestling, right? So I get into that, and, it was like always one of those things where I never thought that, you get into the schoolyard scuffle and back in, you're a kid, the double leg takedown, and a ground and pound in the schoolyard against somebody who doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
That's like, that's like the secret sauce right there, right? For kids. So anyway, I started, getting into Taekwondo like everybody else did in the 80s.
Right.
And, I eventually got a second degree black belt in that, but it was through that I met Carl Sestari, who wound up becoming my mentor. And it just so happened that a guy that I trained with in the Taekwondo club was Bergen County SWAT and local Paramus policeman. So he hooked me into him, and it was, going into the literally it was in the basement of a church, and there was some dudes there, and it was a rough crowd, and
Right.
and that
Well,
moment.
what was the motivation? So you're training Taekwondo, the cops there, and he said, was it a discussion you had with him where he said, hey, you might want to check this out? Why?
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like, thank you for that, because I'll run off on a tangent. You just got to keep reeling me in. So yeah, he's like, look, man, I was doing like security work and bouncing and that type of stuff. And he's like, I'm with this guy, I start training with this guy. You really got to check this out, because this is what, this is what works. It makes sense. So by that, back in those days, we were doing, okay, this is a bear hug defense. This is a risk, guy, you stand in front of your partner, you wait, he grabs you, you do your defense, and you're doing what we call specific defenses to, specific attacks. And in a real fight, as we know, all that kind of goes out the window. And, once your fight or flight, that SNS kicks in, and you are just, you got a handful of things that you're doing, and you're going to go to, what you're most comfortable with. So he brings me down there, and there was Carl, and he was in a room with these, guys who were, ranging from cops to dudes I didn't know, where they're from. And it just so happened that, Carl's background, he was, so he started training in judo and karate with Yaneska Sensei down in Cranford, who eventually I wound up training with and getting my 2nd degree black belt in judo in. And then he was in the army. Then he came out. He was a Roselle cop, and and then there was an incident where he actually killed another police officer at a party. I don't know how this happened. I'm going to describe the story to you, and it's not going to make any sense, and it still doesn't to me. And I really didn't even ask about it when I was told. They were posing for pictures with weapons, and then they thought it was a good idea to pull the trigger on the weapon. This doesn't make any sense to me as a range safety officer.
Right.
It makes zero sense. So I'm just presenting it for what it is.
Yeah.
Take it and go with it. How shoots a guy he was living with, who's also a cop. He winds up going to jail for manslaughter for 5 years. I met him right when he got out.
Wow.
So he was the kind of guy that was, and the first thing I will tell you, he was extremely intelligent, very knowledgeable. I mean, extremely knowledgeable. And if there was something, he would take a look at something. And I still try to do this. And, when something's presented to you, I try to look at, okay, this may look like bullshit, but there must be a kernel of truth, in the middle of this. So, let me seek that truth. So that was him. And he, over the course of his training, wound up getting hooked up. I don't know if you remember a guy named Charlie Nelson.
Yeah.
In New York City. So we wound up training with him. That got him into the World War II Defendu realm, which is kind of where I came in. So I go down there, and, we're starting, wasn't waiting to get attacked. It was like position, everything's based on position and distance and momentum and balance, right? So,
Right.
Where you are in relation to your target, and then, increase your momentum, stop his, maintain your balance, destroy his. It looked like what a fight looked like. It didn't start with, waiting to get attacked or waiting for them to throw the first punch. This is, we work on, in a perfect world, you set your distance, and then when he moves, you just move on that movement. Right. So that's it. So yeah, that's where, we started, and that's when I started training myself. I mean, my whole goal first was self-preservation. I'm like, I want to learn this. I want to train in this, and I want to understand literally the truth about self-defense, right?
Yep.
What really works, get the bullshit out. So started there for me. Then when I started teaching people and I opened my first school, I'm like, look, I'm teaching karate, I'm teaching judo, I'm teaching jujitsu, teaching the combatives. And so Carl and I created a curriculum that we called it Taekwondo Jiu-Jitsu. And the first 6 weeks was basically combatives. right? So
Right.
my goal is like, you come to me and I go, look, as an adult, right? You know, something's going to happen, right? You're either going to get too busy, you know, you're going to get injured, you know, you're going to move, you know, you're going to have a kid. So my goal is to train you up as fast as possible to give you some real skills as soon as possible. So if you left, you know, at least you could walk away and be like, hey, you know, I got something, right?
Right.
I feel confident. I know how to assess a situation. I know how to establish distance. I know how to fight back. I have a plan. So that was like my first motivation was literally for myself. And then, okay, if I'm going to teach people, you know, I got to really teach people, right? I got to give them the shit. And if you want to stay on after that, great. You know, we want to get into the whole, the whole, Bushido and martial art, you know, all that stuff. I go, that's great. I'm like, but you don't need that, right? You just have, you know, you can just use this. And, you know, there's nothing better for me than hearing somebody, as you know, that, you know, hey, I had a close call or somebody came, you know, and you showed them the way.
Yeah.
You know, so that was really, you know, again, like we've got so many barriers in this industry where it's like, you got to get a black belt, you got to train for so long,
Yeah.
you got to do all that crap. And the reality is, you know, sorry guys, thousands of people defend themselves every day against criminals who live their lives, you know, in the street, right? So, and they have no training at all.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
let's look at that, you know, when they, you know, when we come in and we're talking to people, you know, I'm like, look, I'm like, you know, you're basically, you know, operating on that predator prey relationship where, you know, you want to break that as fast as possible because they think, you know, listen, they've got success if they're approaching you in a certain way, right? And they're trying to impose their will over you because they've been doing it for, you know, long as they're in the street. You know, you need to break that cycle, and it's not a prize fight. It's not a fight to the death necessarily, but it's, you know, and that's where I think, God, I mean, how many times, you know, you got like, you need to study 10 years, you need to do,
I
you
know.
know, I mean, man, you know, I'm like, and what does that tell somebody who's thinking about, you know, maybe it should do take some training or look at, you know, what does that tell that person that's reading that post or, you know, or listen to that, you know, listen to this expert tell them that you got to spend the next 5-10 years of your life to learn how to protect yourself. I mean, self-defense isn't a style, it's an instinct. I mean, it's in everybody, you know, and we just gotta, we want to be able to, you know, help them just tap into that and give them some realistic, you know, expectations with, you know, with what they're going to be able to do.
Well, it's a luxury to be able to train that many years. And what's interesting about your approach is ethically, I mean, it's your approach is absolutely rock solid because, you know, the vast majority of people are not going to be able to put time in, you know, for that. But the illusion that's out there is that somehow the skill sets of destruction aren't as easily accessible as they are. I mean, that's the dirty little secret is like, it's ugly. It's not, you know, there's nothing, you know, rewarding about it. It's survival, but you can teach it real fast. And probably most problem that probably what you find is what I find at least is most people are it's not that they can't do it. It's that they're uncomfortable that they already can do it once you show them the path, you know, to that.
Right.
And it's interesting that you took that because it's like, you can't, listen, you can improve the coordination, you can do all that other stuff, but until you know that, God forbid, something happens tomorrow and they go out, that you haven't given them basic skill sets that they can at least injure somebody to save their own life. You know, then you do that. I mean, it's such a great message, and I think people misunderstand what you're saying.
Right. They think that I'm going to get you to black belt level in an hour.
Right.
You know, and that's just not the case. But if you can't teach somebody in 5 minutes something that could save them now, I mean, look, hey, when you're confronted, hey, run, look at that, right? I'm like, escape. That's a viable, you know, solution to that. And then when you're getting into, you know, different, you know, again, empty hand combat is like the lowest rung of all self-defense.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the last thing you want. I mean, we've got, projectile weapons, impact weapons, edge weapons, empty hand, and then, the hierarchy of that is, striking is first. As I said, like, I mean, I would like, look, the least amount of physical contact I can have with you, the better. And here I am with a, grappling background. I mean, I wrestled high school, bit in college, judo, jujitsu, and, I love grappling. I don't teach it, right? It's not part of what I mean, there are some elements in what we teach that have, there's specific throws that we'll use. There's some takedowns, like not as part of the core curriculum and not as part as a basic self-defense package, because you don't need, normal average person doesn't need to know how to hip throw somebody.
No.
Right. I mean, it just doesn't work. So, we'll just, we just want to be able to, teach people, again, you do the same thing. Like, look, this is how you're going to interact with your environment. This is how you're going to be, you're, aware. This is how you're going to present yourself. Right. And this is how you're going to maintain space. And, you move forward from there. But again, it's like, you take them from, you don't, it's like you're going down the highway. What exit do you want to get off? Right. It's like, okay, I just want to get off the first exit. This is all I need. And you will be better off than when you got on that highway, right? When you got on that path. So yeah, I just, again, frustrating, when people see that and they think, even with firearms training, right? I mean, you don't need to shoot like a SEAL to be able to understand gun safety and how to, maintain control of your weapon, in close quarters, right?
Yeah.
You should practice that stuff
Yeah.
for sure. And I'm not saying don't train, because, all of our programs come with, training drills.
Right.
So I'm like, you got to practice. I mean, there's first from the awareness and escape and evasion type stuff and the everyday carry tools like pepper spray. And it's funny, like, I carry pepper spray with me. Why wouldn't I? Along with everything else. It's, again, if I'm approached and I'll just juice you and go on my way. Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's the least amount of contact that I can have with somebody. And, I think we get, between the media and what we see, with combat sports, we get into this prize fighting mentality when it comes to self-defense, and it's really not. It's just, you're just, breaking that predator prey relationship.
Yeah, which is a very different relationship than a duel, where you're there and you got agreed upon rules. And the problem is when you get into this, people think somehow you're denigrating combat sports, and that's not the case at all. It's combat sports is like, it's the level of skill it takes to be good is just amazing, and the dedication and all that. But the reason they're able to have that skill and they're able to do that is because what do? They take injury out of the equation. Direct injury to the human body, because you got to gamify violence. Right. And that's all you point. If you just point that out, it's not, like people say somehow, are you saying like, this guy, this BJJ guy sucks? I go, no. I say, actually, I love training guys like that, because all I got to do is just switch a couple of things. Right. Say, instead of that submission move, we're going to drop all the way through the joint. Right. They get it right away. They're fucking amazing athletes.
And they're also tough. And they're also tough as hell.
Mentally tough. Yeah. There's no, you don't have to do it. And once they get it, they're like, oh, okay. And a lot of those guys are really cool. I mean, I'm out here in Vegas, and so I got a lot of the UFC guys.
There's a lot of guys there. Yeah.
I found that they're totally humble. They come up, and I remember one guy, really well-known guy, came up to me and said, hey, listen to me. He goes, my brother had a knife pulled on him, and he goes, he got robbed. Thank God he's okay. He goes, but I had nothing for him. He goes, what do you do? He goes, because everything he thought about, he goes, nah, that wouldn't. And he was just humble about it. And he came in, and dude, if I got in the ring with him, he would have choked me out in 2 seconds.
Of course, these guys are professional. These are elite athletes at the top of the
and I mean, I got no illusions about stuff that, my competitive days were over a long time ago. And even when they were, I wouldn't have been able to take on this dude. But what's interesting is you can share really relevant information when it comes to violence, and your approach to it is just so spot on and stuff. And what was it about, like, Carl, when you worked with him, you obviously saw something right there, and you saw that, hey, was it one of those, did you see it and immediately think, I want to share this with other people?
Yeah, I mean, first,
I get that with you. I get there was that, like, you
yeah,
saw this
dude.
guy go, why does, this
Why
is
is
what
he
I've been
sitting
looking
there?
for. Why doesn't everybody have it? You
Why
know?
doesn't everybody know the shit? And why is
Yeah.
everybody doing it?
Yeah, I get
You
it.
know, and that's where, you know, you're like, I've got the key, right? I
Yeah.
go, holy crap. I go, everybody needs to know this shit.
Yeah.
And, you know, first, again, when you get up, you know, when you meet somebody and you know that they're a dude, you know they're a dude, right?
Yeah.
You know, they got the
Yeah.
vibe, you can feel it. You're like, yeah, just in their mannerisms, the way they conduct themselves. So yeah, he was throwing heavy heat. And, you know, I'm like, all right, am I gonna make it out of this freaking place? So
Yeah.
again, but once I saw it, and I'm like, holy shit, action is faster than reaction. No shit. Right. I'm like, all right, and we're, you know, this is where, you know, I've got to take this to the world. And it started with me training regular people in the, you know, in my club. And then and then we started to get some, you know, stuff on video and then start putting that out back in 2003.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then, you know, then it just, you know, people, the problem that we run into is that people will be like, oh, that's too simple.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, after you learn that, I go practice that 1,000 times and then go lift some weights. You know, I'm like, what do
Yeah.
you know, I'm like, you know, dude, spend your time doing other shit, man.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to do, you know, I don't need to know how to pull guard. I mean, even though again, like once you get into it, it's just a position, but you know, I didn't know how to triangle choke. I don't need to know how to do all those things.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think people just like collecting little shiny rocks that are techniques when you find out that you only need, you know, a handful of techniques and tactics, and then you just learn how to apply them to everything else. And that was amazing to me.
Well, I think probably one of the things also that really helped you out was, you know, the good thing about the internet, you know, good for us, meaning
Right.
there's just a lot of objective video of real violence, and you got
Right.
to see just how ugly it was, just how
Yeah.
easy it was. You got to see guys that, you know, there are times, and not to put them down, but you saw highly trained people outside of the combat sport arena be very susceptible to somebody who just wanted to do violence, you know?
Well, yeah.
And so you realize that, yeah, the unfortunate truth is, you know, the reality oftentimes can be disappointing and inconvenient, you know? And,
Right.
and,
That's a great way to put it, man.
you know,
I'm stealing that, by the way.
yeah, well, your straightforward approach, is just is great. And I'm curious about Carl, because I only know what I knew from this. Did his prison time add to what he already had?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just curious about that, because
And
I've done a lot
then-
of work in the prisons, and I understand the mindset that you get there, and I imagine it only solidified and honed in what he knew.
Yeah, I mean, he was again. There was like again a lot of stuff. This is all anecdotal, right?
Right.
So, you know, when he got in, you know, again he had to fight. It was, you know, raw way. You know, it was he was in general population as a former law enforcement officer, and
Shit.
you know, so yeah, I'm like he, you know, but again, it was like, you know, it was funny because when he's like, when I was in the army back then in the 80s, they were teaching, you know, as far as hand-to-hand combat, they're teaching Taekwondo.
Right.
I mean, that was like the flavor of the month. And that's why people, you know, get confused with, you know, with some of the curriculum, because it's always like, you know, whatever they're teaching, and you have more experience with this than me, you know, it's like whoever comes in command winds up putting in their own, you know,
Whatever they like.
whatever they
Yeah.
like. Right.
Yeah.
And then it goes. So, you know, he went through there and, you know, had to fight for his life at times. So, you know, when he got out and I met him, I'm like, he was like, you know, it's not like I mean, we talked about it, but, you know, it's just like, you know, given his background as, you know, a martial artist, and then his time in law enforcement and military, and his intelligence, and then his experience, it's like, you know, you had this perfect blender, you know, and this, you know, this resource. And to tell you the truth, I like so I trained with him for just only a few years on and off.
Right.
He tended to move around a lot. I always chuckle because guys were like, oh, I trained with him for like, you know, months and months. Like, dude, you can pin him down for more than like a month or two.
Right.
And then it was like off and running. So what I would do is I go train with him, take notes, and go home and practice.
Yeah.
Right. So, I had my training dummies, I had my Makawar, and all I would do is just, practice my footwork, hit stuff constantly. So I lost contact with him for a few years. And then when I first knew him, he was like, he was about 5'10", like 215, 220, like a bull. Then 5-6 years later, I find him again, and he's like 150 pounds.
Wow.
Like, he's like, first it was diabetes, then it was cancer, then it was, so my thing was, holy shit, I got like, this is like the real Bruce Lee here for me, right? This is what I'm like, I'm just going to train and document and just pull whatever. I mean, lack of a better word, I'm like, you need to be, this was for me. It was for, just being, obviously, he's my instructor, mentor, he's the godfather of my daughter. But as a, from a training perspective, personally, I'm like, I want to, I can't let this die here. And that's where, and I just did it, one for myself, then two for when we put the curriculum together, when I had my club, that was what it was for. It was only later we started like putting the videos together and doing stuff like that, because, that again, it was originally just to, save my own ass. Right. And again, listen, it's not like I haven't been, in situations where I would do the old kind of MMA ground and pound, and next thing you know, there's guys on my back.
Right.
We would be, college scrum. I got more trouble in college and owning a motorcycle shop than I did in all my years, bouncing and even doing the bodyguard stuff.
Yep.
Like, it was like the regular life shit, like going down to the beach.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That was like, and people look at this stuff and you're like, look, I mean, these, some people, you'd be surprised, they're not exactly necessarily street criminal to be a sociopath. Right. And you come across a group of guys as we're watching. I mean, I think what's amazing now is just like watching people after they've been locked up, over COVID, to like interact with one another.
Yeah.
It's like the good news is, I mean, they all really don't know what the hell, it's a good thing. Like, a lot of people don't know how to fight, but doesn't make them any like less dangerous, so to speak, because it's still physical contact. You can still trip and fall, and somebody can get lucky, and people shouldn't be putting their hands on each other. But when you look at what's happening now, in stadiums, when you get crowds of people together, I mean, people like that psychology just takes off. And then all of a sudden there's certain levels of violence that become acceptable because everyone around you's doing it, and you get that, tribal mentality going. And yeah, so, getting back to, just, knowing him and then seeing him like that, I was just like, I can't, this can't, honestly, it really upset me.
Yeah. You saw the obvious timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and I just, I'm like, look, something's got to be done. And then, that's when it started. And that's where, our curriculum, the training system got really put together over those years. And then, then I was fortunate enough to be able to kind of train it and teach it. And so, we could do it in a progressive type of system and, take it from beginning to end, whatever. It's just, he, I miss him. He was, when he was healthy, he was there. And it's, and it was because of him that I started training in judo with Unesca, who, bro, if you watch UFC 2, you'll see him. Manny Yarborough, remember the big sumo guy?
Oh yeah.
So Yanni was there, and he was his trainer. And I'm gonna tell you, and I miss him too a lot. I mean, he was so cool. Like, going through martial arts, especially when you have like American martial arts teachers who all think they're like Toshiro Mifune.
Yeah.
It's like very like, yes, sir, no, sir. They're like, holy crap. He was so chill. Right. and again, he was like in his 60s. He's like shredded, you know, shit. And then even in his 70s, he was still great shape. He'd roll around every once in a while, but really just a nice, good dude. And there's stories about him too, you know, where, you know, he just like, I'm going to relay this secondhand, but so Carl was doing a demo for this like jujitsu martial arts demonstration. He got hooked into it out in like Long Island, let's say. So he convinced Yanni to come and do a demo.
Yeah.
So Yanni goes out there and he's sitting there and he didn't want to go, but Carl convinced him. And he, you know, it's about an hour ride out and he's sitting in this gymnasium and he's watching this like packed. And he got everyone's doing like, you know, the Steven Seagal, you know, it was like that time.
Right.
So everything was like, okay, I'm going to flip you over with your finger. I'm going to do all this other crap. And, you know, guys are flying, all this shit. So it's Yanni's turn. So Yanni gets up and he goes, martial arts, no magic. He's like, anyone want to come fight? He goes, come fight me. And the guys came on the mat and he just grabbed them and throw them. And then that was it. And he's like, okay. And then he just sat down. But that was like his mentality. And that was Carl's mentality. And this is the other thing. And I don't put this out there, but it's like, you know, you also, if you're going to do this and like you say, if you're going to hang your shingle out, you better be ready. Right. Yeah. This was like, you know, you have a studio, I mean, you know, there can come a time where somebody walks in and be like, hey, Tim Larkin, you know, fuck you.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna be like,
this happened.
Yeah, dude. That's the reality of
doing
what we do. You know, and I'm
man.
like, yeah, man. I'm like, you know, and it's either it ends here or it keeps going. Like
I mean, every new military unit had that guy, you know, and
yes.
And you just had to be ready for that. And that's what I liked about that era of instructors. Those guys had no problem, you know, putting up.
No, man. Like he was the other guy who was there was a karate Kimura sensei. He wound up coming in Hackensack, but Yanni had brought him in. He was like literally living in the back of the dojo. And I go, these guys came over to America in the 70s to teach karate and judo. You know, so there's also that mentality. I mean, there's still today in Japan a high school tournament named after UNESCO.
Wow.
I mean, that's what's like, you know, and he wound up hurting himself in his time for the All Japan Judo tournament, so he couldn't compete. But I mean, that's how incredible he was. And then you see that, and then you get to know him, and he's just so mellow. I think the coolest thing he said was that when he got made, well, first when he got made the 5th Dan, and you know the belt turns to red and white, you know, Carl's like, you know, Sensei, are you gonna wear your red and white belt? And he's like, no, they're girls' colors. You know, I mean, that's just
great.
It. And when he got promoted to 10th Dan, I'm like, Sensei, congratulations. He goes, yeah, it's because they think I'm gonna die soon. It's like that kind of shit.
That's awesome.
But yeah, like, so those are the guys that, like, you know, impressed upon me. And then I've had some coaches, and of course my dad, you know, growing up, that, you know, really, of course I had a ton of crap. You know, it's funny, you know, when people are like, hey, just go down the street to, you know, the local guy and learn how to defend yourself. I'm like, good luck with that. I'm like, you know, you know, you don't know what you're getting. And I go, I've had more awful teachers, and I don't speak for myself. I just speak for pretty much everybody, you know, that, you know, I've had more bad teachers than I had good teachers.
Yeah.
Right. And I only had like a couple mentors. So, you know, to sit there when you're, you know, thinking that you can just walk out the door and find a good doctor, find a good restaurant, right? I'm like, yeah, you can find food, you know, but you're really not going to find, you know, what you're looking for. So, you know, when you're getting these things, and we're doing our programs and we're putting these things out there and we're giving these people this information, you know, you can't get it any place.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I used to drive like, I chuckle, you know, and no dig at any of our, you know, members who, you know, log into the platform, but, you know, it's like guys can't like have problems logging in to their training. I'm like, bro, I used to drive like 2 hours to go get my ass kicked and then come home.
Yeah.
Right. So to give you this shit pretty much.
Yeah.
And
well, that's just it, man. I mean, you provided, a full curriculum. I mean, that's how motivated you were. Like you guys at that point, people look at stuff and they misinterpret. Like the reason I'm really glad we're doing this is because I'm sure people will see, maybe an advertisement or something like that. And they're thinking, it's just no, dude, listen to anybody listening to this can hear the passion, can hear what your background is. And I don't think I think what they misconstrue is the fact that, hey, to share the information is a completely other issue now it's great. I got it. But now how do I get it out to people? And how do you deal with that? And when you started dipping your toe into that, what were you surprised at how people responded?
Yeah. At first, again, it's like now you're getting into a whole, the whole marketing aspect of it. Right. So, yeah, I mean, I first started it and we, it was more like the message, like I put like, and this is what would be frustrating, you put like what you want to say out there and it just doesn't do it. Right. It's just not, the drill, because we've been doing this a long time. It's got to do something to catch your attention in that couple seconds and get you to click and get you to, go take a look. And, and that's what the next step to keep you going. It's like, the information is here and the message has got to get you to the information. Right. So, that was really, so to get that out there, it was difficult. And then what happened was I started, when I had my place in Pompton Lakes, or the dojo, I was, working out and a guy came in and, wanted to, train in judo. And I'm like, okay, cool. And this was where we get into, Captain Chris.
Right.
And he was a, strong, tough kid, good training partner. I was competing then, in judo, and I was in my 30s, but I was still going. So I needed like training partners. I literally, Tim, I put that dojo together, not to make money.
Right.
Really. I mean, I would like to have made money. Don't get me wrong. I can't say not to make money, because as I learned how to make money, everyone wants to make money. Right. And, the starving artist thing is bullshit.
Yep.
And I think people who instruct in martial arts should get paid along the same lines as like doctors and attorneys and things like that. I do. If you're like legitimate and have great, have a great pedigree, that's what you should be getting. Anyway, I digress. But I basically had that place to like train and to like get bodies to like work out.
That's the hardest thing, man. It's the hardest thing is getting good bodies, man.
Yeah. I'm like, and what I loved about like judo, and you could say about wrestling or BJJ or even boxing, any like full like kind of contact sport, but I tend to like the grappling sports more, not because of my background, just because I don't like getting punched in the face at all. So I'm like, it's just not, you can strangle me, you can throw me. I'm like, that's fine, I don't care. But yeah, getting punched, I'm like, I don't have the temperament for that shit. So, to get these, to do stuff like that and to get guys in, you say getting bodies, man. I just thought of this dude, and that's what I loved about, again, judo for me in particular, was that no matter how good you thought you were, somebody could come in off the street and just be like, former NFL player. I had one dude, this dude, Zoltan. Yes, Zoltan. He was awesome. He was like Croatian, and all he did was hang sheetrock all day. And he was like 220 pounds, man. And so we would do things like I'd come in, I'm like, screw it, come on. He's got like, I've got a gi on, he's got no gi. And he literally just grabbed me and picked me up like a 4x8 sheet of rock. And I'm like, holy shit. Thank God he didn't know how to finish that shit.
Oh yeah. They got that farm strength, man. It's
just my God,
crazy.
dude. I'm like, yeah. So like Chris came in and he just came in as a student and, saw that I was marketing the videos online. So started getting me into, and I know you know his name well, Dan Kennedy.
Oh yeah.
So he's like, yeah, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? I'm like, doing the long copy ad, long copy sales page, all that stuff. And then really kind of getting that. Then I started seeing like real success.
Right.
And then found out like he never actually told me that he was doing the Lieutenant X stuff. I'm sure you remember that too.
Oh yeah.
All right. So I was maybe doing I don't know, 10, 15 grand a month in videos. And I thought that was, I thought that was good.
Yeah.
So we sat down, he told me who he was, who he was in the website. And he showed us like, yeah, dude, I'm making 150 grand a month.
Right.
So I'm like,
He was killing it, man.
yeah, I'm
He
like,
was just killing it.
I'm not. And it was a shitty video with him in a fucking hoodie, like doing typical shit and, filmed in his basement, which probably led to the allure. But then that's where he's like, I need your content. I need your stuff now. He's like, that's what we want to do. So then it was fine. So with me and Carl had videos. So we started like breaking those out. And then I started filming extra content for him. And then, so basically I was like the instructor, he was doing the marketing and the distribution. And dude, we had like months where it was like 150, 200 grand, 300 grand, like nuts, nuts. And he was doing all that shit. Yeah. As, top secret training. And then we're doing that. So 24 months go by and, over the time, something's going on. He brought in this other guy who was his consultant, and then found out that, he came to the conclusion at the end of 24 months that he didn't need me as the expert. He could just be the expert.
Right.
And,
amazing how that works.
Yeah, right. But again, look, I'm not going to take anything from him. He would train and work out with me. When I'm doing 1,000 fit-ins, he would do them. Right. So he would be one of the guys that I'd be working out with. Wasn't really good in competition. So, and, his background, was, look, I'll just say it because it's a matter of public record. I don't think he did a semester of ROTC.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, he was never in the military, never won any tournaments or did anything. I think he did judo at another club and got like a yellow or green belt and claimed to have other ranks, but I never saw any, anything. So anyway, so he's like, he just assumed he created that persona, Captain Chris, and then went from making, a decent amount of money a month to making like $2,000 a month. So my wife and I had like 50 grand in the bank. I was like, just moved into a new house, 2 young kids. We're like, holy shit, we gotta come up with some stuff. So I had an instructor program. I pulled those guys over, and that helped. And then we were like literally like the main 12 modules of the self-defense training system. Like I was filming 3 a weekend with a studio, with a group of, and then built a website, put that. So this shit was done in like, my kid was like, my son was like raised by Lightning McQueen for like, for like that year, because my wife and I are like doing the web pages, getting the shit out, doing the content, doing the marketing, doing the buy, like everything. It was like a freaking, like, I don't even know how we did it. So over the course of that year, film the modules. And then I had the subscription program. So once I got that going, I'd be filming the next 3 months. I'm like selling month 1. I got month 3. And I'm like, okay, I got to get month 4, 5, and 6 out. So we literally launched that. And meanwhile, he launched, he had a fire sale on all my old stuff and, sold like $1.2 million worth of it in like a month and a half.
Jesus.
Didn't see a dime. And then my, again, when I go back, I should mention this. One of my good buddies, who's my attorney, and he's a good litigator. Like so Chris, way back when it fell apart, I should say he offered me pennies on the dollar back, this was in October of that year. So October 2007, right in the middle of the housing crisis, I launched a new business. Great.
Yep.
I also came out with a bulletproof backpack right in the supply chain crisis. So if I'm doing something, do the fucking opposite. So I'm like, so he winds up. So my buddy's like, he offered me pennies on the dollars. Like, if you take this, and this is my buddy, football college with me, we're like, he's my boy. He's like, dude, if you do this, he goes, I'm not going to talk to you again. So I'm like, okay, man. So then we're into it. And I go, whatever happens, I go, you got to do it on contingency. So I was like, okay. So Chris owed me some money. didn't give me any for that month. Basically was like, F you, done, sold all that shit. I found out through one of my other customers that he did have a fire sale on this stuff and used that money to launch his close combat training, which is now dead. So that started a 6-year litigation.
Wow.
So all in, so on top of launching the business, creating the content, planning, thinking at least this thing was going to last another couple years, right? New house. On top of that, he sends his guy down to Carl's widow, because Carl died in 2007, and let's just say presents a story that, pissed her off. And, I'm no big fan of that, group, because whatever, they're still around. I don't care. Right. It was like, let's put it this way. While I was training and doing this stuff, all these guys were posting in forums and chat rooms. Right. So whatever. So anyway, and while they're complaining about how much Carl was compensated, which was compensated well, they never got him. They never gave him a dime. And Carl never monetized this is the first time he was actually getting paid decent amount of money for his knowledge. So, it was no problem with them flipping her on me, which was whatever, because I was gonna hey, I can continue this relationship moving forward. And she's just like, yeah, no. And she kind of tried to sue me, but then figured out she couldn't, and then didn't. So that was we had started negotiating, and the whole time when I'm suing Chris, I'm like, come with us, join us in the lawsuit, and then we can unified front and split up whatever we get at the end. Right. So she said no. She decided to attack me. That they lost that. Meanwhile, I'm chasing Chris down, and he's got a Delaware corporation. He's got a Nevada corporation. He moved from New Jersey to California to hire a lawyer out in California.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, by the way, meanwhile, I'm launching a business and doing all that shit. And it's just like, man, I gotta be honest, Tim. I don't know how the hell I got here, and I don't know how the hell I am, but I'm fucking still here.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna kill me, brother.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, and that's what people don't. They look at something and they don't understand. I've had so many friends that are in the biz, and they don't understand what it takes. They don't understand how quickly people will turn on you. And what's really strange, I see in the spec ops community all the time, man. Everybody, if you get a little bit of success, the sharks just start. It's literally the deal where the crabs are pulling you back in.
Dude,
as you try
in the bucket, right?
Yeah.
Right. And and I'm like, you got to celebrate success.
Yep.
I'm glad for you. Right. I am glad that, we're still here and we're doing this, and a lot of people have come and gone.
Yeah.
I mean, I would wish everybody, the rising tide raises all boats, man. I'm like, I wish, I want people to be successful in what they're, passionate about. So, it just so happened again, it just turned out to be this, and this is where I found my enjoyment. But, the people, as you talk about, it's like, and you hear it, it's like, oh, well, that guy, shouldn't be talking about that because that was, that was, when a lot of Navy SEALs are coming out, especially after Bin Laden, and, guys are, shit talking some other guys. And you're like, dude, what's wrong with, what is this starving artist thing? If someone wants to pay you $1 for it, pay them $1 for it. You're not sticking a gun in their head.
Yeah.
Just, you have something of value. So figure out what they did and go do it. If that's why, if you can't figure out how to do it, don't besmirch this guy for figuring it out. Ask him.
Yeah. It's weird. It's a weird time too, where, people out of nowhere can just be launched. They can get on the right media venue, right podcast, and all of a sudden they are a personality, and they've got tons of followers. And hey, I'm happy for them. But what's interesting is, the reason you're still around is because you have a real curriculum, you have a real system, you have real passion about it. There's something behind it. It's not a quick You know, just, hey,
No.
we're gonna do this. You actually give a shit, and
Right.
you're there. Now, hey, listen, people like me, you know, I can do all that. You don't like my stuff. Hey, that's honest. That's
Yeah,
fine.
it's all right. Tell me I suck.
I'm not for
Right.
everybody, you
Right.
know, and that's fine. But you can't deny that real time has been put into it, and that you've done a lot of, you've done a lot of really thoughtful, well done, material, and it's solid, because you couldn't survive this long if you didn't,
Right. If you're getting, putting shit in a box and sending it out, I mean, eventually, it's going to be discovered. And, I say, it's been, we've been fortunate enough, I guess, to, again, survive. And you can tell, that especially, the last like 4 years, of coming in, because it was interesting, because when the election cycle changed and, Trump got in, a lot of people in this area, or even the survival and self-defense area, you didn't see them.
Right.
They were not, because it was easy to kind of play on that, one, I don't know, I don't buy a lot of crap. Right. I mean, I know what I know. I know your stuff. I know, a couple of guys, that I enjoyed, but I'm like, I don't, because it's like kind of like check that box kind of stuff. But when you see stuff pop up over and over again, and it's the same old shit, cookie cutter message.
Oh, yeah.
You can kind of, you can tell, you can start to tell. I mean, and even, again, trying to like, get, the trick for all of us is to get the person who doesn't think they can do it to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where, that would be our main message. And I know you're the same way. It's like, you can, it's here for you to, take. And, you don't have to, train every day. Right. Even if you're just thinking about it. And I know this sounds like a little bullshit, but if I'm walking out of my house, I'm thinking about, hey, I might get attacked today. As opposed to, okay, I'm gonna go do my shit. Nobody's gonna bother me. I'm like, there's like two different people there. You've got, so now you're a little bit more aware. You're thinking about, you're starting to plan if you're approached, and that. I'm like, imagine if like everybody did that, or a lot more people did that. Not everybody, because everybody's not gonna do it. But if the general, let's say the people who have an interest in it, could just even do that. And then, okay, maybe I go practice some techniques. Maybe I just go do that. I mean, one of the things that, we do preach a lot is like, if you're going to, hit something, you got to practice hitting something. If you're going to stab something, you got to practice stabbing something.
Yeah.
Whether it's a weapon, because we'll do, everything from awareness, escape, and evasion, all the way up to, weapons like impact weapons, edge weapons. And then we do like brass knuckles, all kinds of crap that Carl and I were, messing around with and getting into. I mean, shit. I mean, one of my favorite, man, I love a blackjack.
Oh, blackjack's fantastic. I got one right behind me. It's my paperweight.
Right, exactly. I got bottle openers, all kinds of shit. And I'm like, well, why
my great uncles were Boston cops.
Oh yeah,
and
so
they just would show you how to use a blackjack, sap, everything. I mean, it was
great.
Super effective.
It's a black belt in your pocket.
Absolutely.
I'm like, people are like, yeah, still around. You always do the trick where you put them in like the finger of the glove.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're holding it, and you're like, hey, okay, well, he was hitting with his gloves.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, man. So, and that's where, again, like, where you want to get off on the highway, right?
Right.
So it's like, you can start here, you could stay here, and that'll be fine for a lot of the stuff. But then if you really want to start exploring this and get into it, well, then we can keep going.
Well, what's cool about your thing too, I'm sure you've had this experience, like maybe they didn't do a lot, maybe they've only seen maybe one or two products or something like that. But then you get that, well, now these days you get the email that says, hey, Damian, the old me would have done this in this situation, but because I saw your video, I did this and I got myself out of there before anything ever happened. That behavior modification, to me, that's the greatest gift you can give anybody, is the idea, because not everybody really wants to do the training. That's the one thing when I discovered that was my big aha moment. It's like, oh shit, not everybody wants to be like me. Oh, wow.
That
What a
is,
surprise.
you were talking about this in another podcast I was listening to.
Yeah.
That is huge. Cause I was talking, it's like, yeah, you're an anomaly.
Yeah.
You're an anomaly. Even anyone who trains for an extended period of time is an anomaly.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with us.
Absolutely.
So I'm like, who the hell would want to go do this? Who would want to get like strangled on a weekly basis? Who would like not mind going to sleep for 30 seconds?
Right.
Whatever. I'm like,
Right.
it's like the best little REM sleep you can get. So
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, and that's okay. And I think what we fight against is a whole group of these people, real or imagined, that say that you need to want to do that. And that's bullshit. And that's what gets me pissed off, because going back to what we were talking about before, what do you tell like, your average person that's scared, right? That's worried about what's going on, that's watching, that's seeing riots and worried about active shooters and, going to their car, their girl or their daughters at school. I mean, these are like real people with real problems that things happen to, but we can help them, and with the least amount of time investment, a lot less time investment than they think, but you never know. Like, you may all of a sudden be like, hey, let me look at that other video. All right, let me try that. Okay, next thing you know, you're doing something. You post you ask a question, you get an answer, and now you're into it, but you're doing it at your own pace. Not like, okay, you got to be here every Tuesday and Thursday, for an hour and a half, and then that's it. And then keep coming. And if you miss, I'm gonna get pissed at you for not being here, right? And then it's like the model, which studio martial arts or gym membership. It's like, look, I'm like, the more you go, the better it is. And then their livelihood depends on you training longer and more often, right? So I mean, that's the motivation behind it. And I look at it's like, look, again, I'm not, that experience is great. I've had it multiple times in my life. I've been through the good, the bad, and the ugly with that too. I mean, there's been instructors that, I'm like falling out with. I mean, some I'm related to.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, man.
Yeah. And, and then you wind up finding like real gems, but then there's a whole bunch of like everything, the strata of like mediocrity is massive. And when it comes to like self-defense and like what they do, it's like even just the simple fact of like lining up and training to wait, the typical model is like, okay, attack, go. I mean, you've eliminated everything, so much of what really happens when a criminal's like sizing you up and, you're letting them get into your personal space. You're waiting for them. Like millions of people have been taught to believe that if I sit there and you come up to me and you throw a punch at me in the street, I'm going to be able to block it and defend it.
Right.
Right. And, the reality is when you're in the dojo, yeah, sure. Okay. I mean, I'm going to class. I'm going to practice self-defense. We line up, your whole life up until that point was like, okay, you're going to throw a punch. And even if they're not like calling out exactly what they're doing, like they're doing like some shark bait or like, guy in the middle type of, random assault type of stuff.
Right.
Still, the techniques are choreographed anyway from the previous training, and there's an already predetermined winner and loser in this, right? It's not you going to your car thinking about something else where, someone approaches you and you don't know what their intention is. It's like that's when you need to start, self-defense kicks in when that guy starts coming on your radar, right? So that gets completely ignored. And, most people can navigate that situation and survive with minimal training, and that's where, again, that's where I get into, when my one of my couple beefs with like traditional martial arts and self-defense training. And like you said before, with your MMA buddy, it's like, look, man, if everything you have is, if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I also, don't like when guys do things like BJJ for self-defense and they alter it unless you're teaching somebody who's already an expert in BJJ.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's precluded on the premise that you already have a certain skill set. Now, as you said before, we tweak that to self-defense, but you can't start, you know, assuming that, you know, it's not viable to and not accessible to everybody. It's only accessible to people who have that primary skill set.
Right. And that's that to me is the great injustice that we do, is that it's the industry propagates that you have to have a certain athletic skill set to be able to do it. Listen, I love the fact that there's a lot of especially there's a lot of great stuff on social media, and there are a lot of great practitioners on social media, and it's great. But the problem is oftentimes what it does, it precludes, you know, people just look at that and they go, oh, that I could never do that. That could never be me. Therefore, there's no information out there for me that I can use. So I just got to rely on hope, you know? And that to me is just the wrong message. And you know, you don't give any people any illusions, but the idea is, you know, the information that you put out, the information, you know, the way you put it out is, if a predator is, you know, gives you that opportunity, you know, they don't fear you, and they, you know, you can still think and move. Now, you know, if they bring something close that's vulnerable to you, you know what to do with it now. You know, that's something, and they will not expect it from you. This is not a situation where everybody knows what's going on. It you know, that's the other thing people don't understand. They always imagine that duel that is there, and it's not. That's not how violence happens.
And to your point, you know, it's like I always love, like, well, what if he does this? Or, all right, you know, I'm like, dude, I go, you know, or try that again. I'm like, it's only got to work once. Right. I'm like, and he's going to approach you in a way where he thinks he's going to have success, and you're going to react in a way that, you know, he's expecting, and it's not going to be fighting back, or, you know, and that's why people are like, well, you know, what if he's, you know, like, you know, what if he does, if he thinks you're going to defend in a certain way, he's not going to approach you that way. He's going to take it a completely different way, or just ignore you altogether, unless you've got, like, you know, presidential Rolex on, and, you know, you're getting into your Bentley. I'm like, then, well, you know, you should be paying attention. But
and you know, the other maddening part now is, you know, this is universal information, meaning, you know, violence doesn't have an opinion, meaning it goes across all it goes across all political persuasions, genders, everything. And yet somehow our industry, and, you know, I know there's some yahoos in there that probably deserve to be pegged this way, but you know, the problem is, if you teach this now, in the last couple of years, we've been thrown in this category of promoting violence, of you know, alt-right, of, you know, all of a sudden all of us are there. It's you're categorized, and your message is squelched. You know, you and I were talking about that before we got onto this, and that to me is just crazy how difficult it is to, you know, share any of this. We have to, I especially YouTube interviews like this, I can be, you know, you and I can talk very frankly, that's okay. But if I start showing anything, if I start showing, you know, acts of violence, and just, you know, breaking them down or something like that, I have to be really careful, because you know, you cannot be frank, you know, stuff that we could easily do a couple of years ago, and information we'd share, we can get absolutely deplatformed, we can get demonetized, all of those things,
unless we want to, unless we show ourselves killing Russian soldiers in Ukraine. Apparently that could probably that could be okay.
Oh yeah, all the stuff that's out there right now is amazing. I was like, oh, we couldn't post anything like this, but it's all accepted because it's an approved.
It fits the narrative.
Thing. Yeah, the narrative's in there, and so it's been really interesting to navigate these waters the last couple of years. And again, it's I don't know how you found it. You know how
it's different, dude. It's been awful, especially on the marketing side of it. We're actually spending real dollars to get traffic in. It seems we get to a certain point, and then all of a sudden it just drops off. And it just doesn't make any sense given the massive amount of people who are on the platform. So we got to come up with a way. And YouTube's one of those ways where, you know, they can find us, you know, doing this, and then, you know, we can get them to come back to, you know, our websites. So at least they're on the blog, they can get videos, they can look at stuff, they can poke around. they can try, like, I got free courses you can take, it's like, it's, we just got to get them from here to there.
Yep.
So that's the trick. And, we're figuring it out every day. Like we talked about before. I'm like, it's like we're, surviving, and I don't know how. Right. If you ask me a roadmap, and if you ask me to plan something, and I'll be like, okay, how do you think it's going to go? I'm like, I have no fucking clue.
Well, and the crazy part about it is people on the whole have never wanted this information more.
Right.
With everything that's going on. This should be like, we should be overwhelmed right now.
Right.
With people seeking out the information. And yet it's hard for people to find us at times, like, and I don't just mean me and you, I mean, credible people on here, unless you're unless you got the blessing by like a Rogan or somebody who's above it all, and can get you exposure.
Right. You hear that, Joe Rogan?
It's really interesting. And I mean that in the most positive way. I mean, he's
of course, dude. I'm a fan, dude.
One of the few guys that's actually, able to talk in real terms, and it's great to see. But
and now he's big enough so that
they can't cancel him. But it's strange to me. I mean, because I've never had people. It's funny. You get weird things. You get little surges, like all of a sudden, book sales are increasing. Something happens where it goes. And I want everybody to understand. Yes, we are talking about business. Yes, I know that pisses people off a lot of times, but what it is first of all, everybody is in it. Whoever you think your guru is, believe me, that guy needs to make money in there, and it's not unethical. It's not unethical to make money at what you love and do, and as long as you're doing good stuff.
If that guy can't make money, he's gonna go away.
Yeah, and that's just it.
Right.
Let's put it this way: Carl's principles and methods would not be around, if it wasn't for you. And I mean that in the most positive way. I mean, you saw something, you improved upon it, you communicated it to people, you get people to take it to the next level on there, but that would have been lost material, and that's a perfect example. And how were you able to do it? You were able to do it through, being able to share it with people that aren't in your physical area. And how did you do that? You had products,
Right. And that's where I'm glad though that, for us now, at least the way people are getting their information, they're used to the streaming platform. Cause I started doing this in like 2013, which is still, people are still, I mean, occasionally I still got people want DVDs, and I'm like, I don't sell DVDs. I'm like, I'm like, it's like, if I sold DVDs, I'd be out of business.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy when you get those requests. It's like,
I'm like, hold on. They're right next to the VHS tapes. Give me a second. I know.
Oh yeah.
And again, to your point, either side, again, I don't know why defending yourself has become viewed as like right wing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's ridiculous, because human beings are human beings on either side. And I don't care what your political, if you want to protect yourself and your family, you have a right to, especially even with, I've got friends that are liberal. It's like one of them. And, they're like, we're talking about guns. I'm like, dude, I want you to have a firearm.
Yeah.
I think all good people, right or left, should have a firearm and be trained. I'm like, that's it. I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, you're right to own it. I just don't want to have, guys in my group, because I don't know, some of them can be crazy. Right. So I'm like, good people making good decisions. That's what we want. Interesting enough, on a side note about that, you notice that no one's talking about the Ukrainian citizens being armed with assault rifles now. I'm like, that's not news. It's like, no shit. Those guys that put those amendments together all that long ago, pretty smart.
Oh yeah,
pretty smart.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting too is like 11 million gun sales since COVID started with everything.
Yep.
A large majority of those sales, a disproportionate amount went to urban areas, went specifically to single African American women.
Yes. Yes.
Which says it all. It's like there is no.
And they should.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I'm like, I'm sitting there. I'm like, the NRA again. I don't know, but when black men were allowed to vote, black women were there with shotguns, supported by the NRA, so they could go into the polls. Yeah. So that is the exact the people who are in the these, that crime areas, that they need to be armed and trained.
Yeah.
And I'm all, yes, those exactly who should be getting those weapons. And now it's, again, people just want to, at the end of the day, people just want to be safe. They just want to know, a little something. They want to go about the business. The problem is there's, and the reality is not everybody's going to want to do it, but
No.
the minority will, and there's enough in the minority to be like, okay, so you don't need to get it, you don't need a black belt, but you can, this is what you can do, X, Y, and Z. And then, and that's it. I just, I get, look, and even as we age, and I like to say this a lot, it's like your physical, abilities, mental, your state of mind is going to change from day to day, week to week, month to month. Self-defense is always constant, so even the stuff you knew way back in your 20s and 30s, when you were kicking ass and taking names, now it's like, I'm going to do some different shit. It's kind of be looking like the same shit, but it's going to be different. I'm not going to take, there's certain chances I'm not going to take. Plus I know, like even like getting injured, and then recovery and all that stuff. I mean, everything, and so, we've got a rule that's, if you can leave your house, you better be able to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's just, so whatever your assessment, whatever your physical level is at this point, I go, you got to be good to go and figure it out. And it doesn't mean getting in the ring. It just means, have a plan based on what you can do now, and then go forth, and that's where, I like to think we are, we can help, we help people is through the course of their lives. Like look, man, you can come in, and if you really want to go balls out, I'd say if you're training like twice a week for a year and you were in decent shape, you would like, damn, right? I mean, you took it seriously and you did your stuff. But then, once you kind of got those skills installed, I mean, life goes on. They're still there. Like you said, like, you go do some drills every once in a while, right? Just to keep something sharp. But, even backing it down, you've got, there's other, again, getting back to awareness, getting back to non-lethal weapons. I mean, you're in Vegas, so you can carry. Very jealous of that. I'm going to be moving to a red state near you soon, near something.
Good.
I go red state.
I get, and it's so sad, man. It's so sad because, having that option is just so nice. And it's, especially as you age too,
Totally.
mean, I feel better, my wife's a deputy chief out here with Metro and stuff. And she's, very well armed. She's been a couple of shootings when she was younger, all that, but just knowing that when she's out with my kids, she's armed. My kids understand firearms. It's in there. It's now listen, it's a personal choice for our family.
Totally.
And we feel there. I'm not saying you have to, but I'm saying you should have the option.
Right. Yes.
And that to me, it's nice. It's just to live in a state where you have the option.
Right. And that's where, again, like we launched, I said, I should probably show you the backpack. It's really cool. I don't know if, have you seen this thing yet?
I saw one of your commercials when you guys were doing it. It's pretty cool, dude.
Okay. Yeah. So, it's funny because, it's, people, when I get that, people are like, well, who would buy that? I'm like, well, anyone who doesn't want to get shot. So, and then my next question, because it's usually, if you're a concealed carry, if you're a firearms person, you get it immediately because that's, gun violence is, however exaggerated or not, it's real. So it happens. So at least you've got an option where, your vitals are protected. And, if you get hit, it's a non-life threatening injury. Unless you get hit in the head, then your problems are over and you don't got to worry about shit. So anyway, but one of the things the follow-up question I like to ask is, I'm like, where are you with gun control? And if they're, for gun control and they think guns a problem, I'm like, so what are you doing about it? Well, I don't know. I mean, besides voting the way you vote, I'm like, well, why isn't body armor part of your regular,
right?
If you're worried about getting shot, you're worried about guns. I'm like, and you're not wearing body armor or have body armor. I'm like, well, then how worried are you about it? Right? I'm like, not much. because you're really not doing anything about it. You're just talking about it. So, you know, again, we got into this, and that's starting to get, as I said, that's starting to get some legs too. And that's like helping, you know, with, you know, when one goes down, the other goes up.
Yeah.
I need them both to go up.
No, and that's what's really cool is that you're continuing to provide options for your people, you know,
Right.
and put it out there. And I think that's awesome. How are things like just to kind of wrap it all up, and where do you see yourself? What's your idea for the next couple of years and stuff, where you're at and stuff? How's, and you know, your family, you just said you had your son going to his prom and everything, and all of that. I mean, what are your goals for?
Dude, honestly, man, I just want to be happy.
Yeah.
Just want to be happy. I can give a shit. You know, I want to help people, you know, doing what I do, continue to do what I do. As my daughter's out in California in college. You know, I've been married 25 years in a row. And it's funny, my wife was the first student I ever dated.
Oh, wow.
So that was it's the last time I did that shit.
Yeah. Sure, she made sure of that.
Yeah, exactly. So it was the first and last. Yep, first and last. So she, yeah. So again, we've just been through shit, you know, like everybody else. And then the next thing you know, you're there. So, you know, look, I hope, you know, people, you know, start taking, you know, action on their personal safety. And then, you know, so, and that's really where it is. I mean, honestly, we're looking to like, you know, we've got I got like 56 hours worth of training content, not including not a podcast.
Well, that's what I was going to tell you. I'll make sure everything is always in the show notes, but where would you want people to, you know, give them some ideas of where you want to go, and we'll make sure it all gets redoubled in the notes, dude.
It's easy for the training. Go to myselfdefensetraining.com. You know, you can take the free course there, and then that'll get you into it. You can take a look around, and then all of a sudden, then the backpacks are bulletproofbodyguard.com. You can take a look at what we have there. You know, we're looking for distribution and dealers now with that. A couple of people I'm working with and talking to. So yeah, I'm the product guy. I'm like, you know, you can buy it now. You know, obviously we've got fulfillment and items in stock, but we're really looking to grow this segment. The good thing about it is that it takes standard plate sizes like 10 by 12, 11 by 14. So if you have your own armor already, you can just drop it in there. So if you got, and make sure they're lightweight rifle plates, you know, composite plates, no steel plates, please.
Jesus, yeah.
You're pulling this thing over your head to deploy it. I mean,
knock yourself out.
Again, trouble's over. You don't got to worry about shit now. But it's
so great.
Yeah. So, you know, we've got our, you know, different, you know, we've got level 3 plates and level 3A armor on there. And that's what, you know, again, like I'm like, even with those things, you know, it's like, you know, do I envision like one being in every classroom? So when a teacher hears a, you know, fire drill, they can just put on a backpack without alarming the kids. Yeah. Do I see, you know, we've got 2 different models. We've got the Switchblade, which is the civilian kind of looking, you know, civilian looking one. And then we've got the first responder, which is literally a go bag where you pick it up. It's just like on a Velcro belt and just go. So, you know, I think, you know, we just want to continue to like give people real solutions to real problems, right? I'm like,
well, and what's interesting too, Damian, is like a couple of years ago, we would have been put, you know, talking like just what we talked about right now, we'd be put in like the extreme prepper category. People now are listening. I tell people I did a really high-end seminar for a guy. I've been doing it for years, and the stuff there, you would have thought you were at a prepper convention, and these are all 1%ers. And what they're doing is right now, so people are taking this seriously, and body armor was a huge topic.
Yeah.
And I think that's outstanding, man. So we'll make sure.
You know, go right ahead, dude. I'll hook you up.
Thanks, man.
Please, dude, what the hell, man? Yes, not a problem, man.
Appreciate it, brother.
I'll do affiliate stuff. I'll do whatever, you know, distribution shit. Yeah, dude.
Absolutely, brother. No,
this is what it's all about. You know, so
well, I'm sure we're going to get tons of questions, And you know, I hope this won't be it won't be the last conversation.
Yeah, I may have to drag you on my little podcast.
I'd love to, man. I'd love to do that. And
so
hopefully, if you come out to Vegas, man, I'd love to host 100%. You and show you some stuff out here.
I was just at a SHOT Show.
Oh shit! I should have known. I got a machine gun place out here.
Okay, cool.
So you guys, next time you come out, come on, we'll go shooting.
Let's fucking go.
That'd be awesome.
Oh my God, man. That'd be great.
Hey, well, listen, brother, I really enjoy this, and everybody will. I'm really encouraging people to if you have not checked out Damian's stuff, you've got to check it out. And like I said, he makes it really easy for you. There's lots of free information, and take a good look at it. But the product line is awesome. It's really cool.
Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you.
All right, brother.
All right.
Be well.
Be well. Bye.
Man, that accent just kills me. I got so many of my East Coast buddies, and just talking to him was just, you know, all of a sudden I start getting my accent back, and I start wanting them getting, what the fuck? I just love it, man. You know, and you can feel the passion in that guy, dude. I look forward. I hope to have another conversation, meet with him in the future. He's just a good dude. Really, really enjoyed it, and real ethical in how he does what he does. So listen, I hope you enjoyed it. Now listen, please continue to support the channel. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, make comments. That really helps, you know, with the algorithms if you do that. And then also, if you are finally ready to start your own self-protection plan for you and your family, go to timlarkin.com, give us your email, get my free masterclass. It will start putting together the plan for you and your family that will create a world that minimizes the chance of violence ever entering your life. So timlarkin.com. Until next time, stay safe.